Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain here, bringing you guys another Boruto 2 Blue Vortex discussion. Today, I want to talk to you guys about our favorite adopted son of the Uzumaki clan, Kawaki Uzumaki himself, and I want to take a more traditional approach at looking at where his character is following Boruto 2 Blue Vortex Chapter 18, which the review for that will be in the description box. But for today's video, I wanted to do the opposite of what we did in a video from last week, where we focused more so on the character Kawaki, looking at how his actions have him mirroring the cycle of abuse that he was first introduced to via his father, and then later on Jigen and Isshiki. But instead, now, I want to take a look at the part of his character that 90% of fans who read Battle Shonen truly only really care about, which is the power level increase of Kawaki, and why this increase that he's going to get is set to go well above where Isshiki's power level was, and how the story has put it rightfully in front of us this whole time. If you're a fan of your typical Battle Shonen discussions where we take a look at teenage boys beating the crap out of each other, or big meaty men slapping meat in a fight, or big explosions that reshape the entire landscapes, or you're one of those guys who start counting pixels and doing equations and mathematical things to start scaling characters, and you really want to grab those ramen bowls for this newest Naruto Explain video. And fair warning, if you don't have your brown or your yellow or your white pants on, then you might want to have a change of spare clothes depending on which of those bodily fluids that this video makes you release. So Kawaki's pursuit of power, it is a compelling narrative in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, especially when we consider his current standing amongst the top tier characters and his motivations as we see them. So we're going to break this down in detail, and considering everything that we have, including the thematic and the other inspirations behind Kawaki, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, we have to look at Kawaki's need to surpass his current limits. To say that Kawaki's lacking, that would be a bit of an understatement. We've seen the guy basically get his ass whooped like 3 separate times in the story so far. Kawaki, he has a right to feel a little bit inadequate when you think about it. He's been far surpassed by his rivals, characters like base Boruto, without even using Momoshiki's power. Jura, potentially Hidari, Ryu, Matsuri, and Mamushi, they're pushing well beyond power levels that Kawaki might not be able to handle, despite Kawaki wielding Isshiki's indomitable defensive powers and being able to use his shinjutsu with abilities like the Sukuna Hikona and the Daikokuden via the Kokugan. The narratives also made it known that his offensive capabilities, they're just a little bit lacking and insufficient. Boruto, even in his base form, he exhibits both tactical as well as raw strength over Kawaki. He made Kawaki basically say the safe word after one hit. The Shinju clone that we saw, in particular Jura, who's the Ten Tails personified, he has powers that far exceed Kawaki. He told him go to sleep, and Kawaki went to sleep. You also have the potential threat of Code, which, Jesus Christ, never thought I'd be saying this in 2025 about Code, but Kashin Koji's 10 Directions technique is able to see multiple distant future timelines where Kawaki was defeated soundly by Code. It highlights that Kawaki has an urgent need to surpass Isshiki's limitations, or rather the limitations that are on him right now. Code has the claw marks and he has the white karma seal ability. He already possesses a significant threat, but the fact that Kawaki's lost in every possible future that Kashin Koji saw means that where Kawaki's current offensive capabilities are, the defensive increases he got, they're not enough. And if Code does become the strongest as promised by his narrative arc and his own ambitions, then Kawaki, again, is going to be simply outmatched. This further builds into why Isshiki's powers alone by themselves, they're not enough. Isshiki's powers are primarily in Kawaki's hands in terms of the defensive and strategic use of them, but he lacks the offensive powers, and even that might not be enough. Sukuna Hikona allows him to shrink himself and other objects to avoid attacks. Daikokuden allows him to summon objects and jutsu from a separate time space. While all these powers are formidable and he can definitely seal things away in those time spaces, they are not purely offensive, and they don't have the raw destructive output that the people that Kawaki is trying to kill seem to possess. This is where Shibai's DNA offers a key aspect to growth. This is where if you have white pants on, you might want to start changing them. The possibility that Kawaki's current shinjutsu powers belong to Isshiki rather than Shibai, it implies that Kawaki has not yet tapped into his full potential because Shibai's DNA is there. Shibai's shinjutsu, as described, allowed him to transcend the physical realm and ascend to godhood. He's able to make thunderstorms with just shouting and make windstorms by waving his arms and all these incredibly powerful things. If Amado can implant more of Shibai's DNA into Kawaki, which Kawaki said scientific and other means, so that is on the table, this could potentially awaken new godlike shinjutsu, giving Kawaki a broader arsenal to rival and surpass anyone else. He's already using Isshiki's powers, why not use the powers of a real god? You also have potential shinjutsu powers that come from Shibai going into this even further. So the thematic inspiration from Japanese mythology is where you have to look into that. Kawaki's existing powers, Sukuna Hikona and Daikokuden, they draw from Japanese mythology. Sukuna Hikona is a dwarf deity associated with miracles, healing, and smallness, tying to Kawaki's ability to shrink, as well as the Ishin Boshi story of the one-inch man. You also have Daikokuden, which is inspired by Daikokuden, the god of fortune and wealth, and the power to summon treasures, represented by Kawaki's ability to summon objects from a separate dimension. Ishin Boshi, the one-inch boy, that inspiration behind Sukuna Hikona connects Kawaki to the magical wish-granting mallet, the Udachi no Kozuchi, a tool that grants wishes and expands on powers. This connection could imply that Kawaki's powers could evolve, not necessarily into, say, wish-granting, but maybe creation ability, and it would be fitting given Shibai's godlike shinjutsu. Though you could argue that that's already covered by omnipotence, since omnipotence takes desires and makes them into reality, which is a form of wish granting when you think about it. You also have the potential shinjutsu that Kawaki could gain to awaken as well. Reality manipulation and matter creation. If you're an OG sub, you know one of the things I talked about when Isshiki's power was first shown to us and he had the Dharma Wheel Eye. I talked about how there were 8 spokes on that Dharma Wheel and there could be 8 potential powers with it. Some of these we have seen just combine into other techniques like Ada Senrigan, but you have reality manipulation and creation matter. Shibai's DNA could grant Kawaki powers to bend reality or create matter from nothing, akin to the wish granting mallet ability, but again, omnipotence can do that, so that might be off the table. This power, if it does happen, could give Kawaki offensive or destructive edges as needed that he's lacking, allowing him to conjure energy constructs or weapons on a massive scale. This could be where we get the destruction of Konoha that we saw in the early part of the flash forward sequence. You also have temporal manipulation. Since Daikokuden ties into the time space, Kawaki might gain powers like stopping or reversing time in localized areas. This could mimic Shibai's transcendence beyond physical limitations, only obviously on a smaller scale, as we've seen when it comes to the powers of the different Shinju that we've seen. They're not the full powers of Shibai. They're weak imitations, just like the ninjutsu. If you have a power such as that, it allows Kawaki to rewrite moments of battle and create significant advantages for himself. You also have the potential for advanced energy absorption and projection. We see that with the Karma Seal, but you could see something tied in with the Dojutsu, drawing power from Shibai's godly essence per se. It could gain a technique that further amplifies what his Karma Seal can do in that respect. You also have the spiritual domain. So with Shibai's Shinjutsu, Kawaki could exert control over the environment itself, turning reality into his domain, further emphasizing his godlike transformation by using that DNA. A really great example of this, since we know that all ninjutsu that we saw in Naruto's manga were cheap imitations of what Shibai could do. Think about what Kabuto could do in Sage Mode. He was able to manipulate the ground, in particular the cave they were in. You could see something like that extended with Shibai's Shinjutsu powers. You also have Kawaki potentially having a transcendence as a narrative catalyst per se, because it will push Boruto to grow stronger. It's a symbiotic growth when you think about it, very consistent with what we've seen with both of these characters. Boruto and Kawaki's rivalry, it parallels Naruto and Sasuke's. As one grows stronger, the other one must respond, pushing both characters to new heights. Kawaki's transcendence through Shibai's DNA would force Boruto to explore the full potentials of not just his own karma and Otsutsuki power that he inherited from Isshiki, but also potentially see if he can't push himself when it comes to his belief as a shinobi. Because Boruto and Kawaki each represent different sides to the question, where does science fit into this world of shinobi? Kawaki's role also as a thematic opponent is right there on display as well. Kawaki's transformation aligns him closer to Otsutsuki ideology through ascension, through destruction and consumption. As Kawaki becomes more godlike in a sense, he's mirroring Isshiki and Shibai, embodying the antithesis of Boruto's human-centric ninjutsu, ninja-centric ideals. This ideological clash, it necessitates Boruto's growth, ensuring that Boruto's human spirit triumphs over Kawaki's godlike power. The cycle of rivalry is another thing to take a closer look at. Kawaki's demand for more power ensures he becomes a threat that Boruto must surpass. This mirrors Naruto and Sasuke's dynamic, where one's evolution directly impacts the other's journey. Kawaki's godhood, or in this sense using god power, will force Boruto to fully embrace his identity and his role as a singularity of fate, especially because he's the one who told Kawaki to go visit Amado. Unintended consequences, if you will. Kawaki's desire for power, it is dangerous. It's a moral corruption. Kawaki's reliance on Shibai's DNA risked him losing his humanity. Shibai's ascension involved abandoning his human form, a symbolic death of his own mortal soul, if you will. Kawaki might follow this path, sacrificing his emotions and mortality for the sake of more power. The irony in all this is, again, he's on a path towards becoming just like Isshiki. Kawaki despised Isshiki for using him as a tool, yet his obsession with power, it mirrors Isshiki's philosophy of domination through strength. This creates a tragic irony where Kawaki's desire to protect others, especially Naruto, drives him to become the very monster that he hated. But it's all in the sake for getting more power. In conclusion, Kawaki's demand for more Shibai's DNA, if he does go down this route, which it seems extremely likely just given everything that has been alluded to with the indomitable power of Shibai's cells and all these mighty powers that we have yet to see, and Kawaki's unquenchable thirst for more power, absolute power, it does make you wonder, is this what Boruto meant when he said, "I didn't think you would go this far"? It could stem from his desperation to compete with stronger foes like Boruto, Jura, and even potentially Code. His current powers, rooted in Ishiki's shinjutsu, it lacks the offensive output needed to dominate those threats. Even if he gets the limiters removed, Amado's saying it might not be enough. By integrating more of Shibai's DNA, Kawaki could unlock godlike abilities inspired by the Japanese mythology we went over earlier, as well as the folklore, such as reality manipulation, time-space control, divine energy projection. However, this transformation at risk corrupting Kawaki's humanity, aligning him closer to Isshiki and Shibai's destructive philosophies. As Otsutsuki, Kawaki's growth ultimately serves as a catalyst for Boruto, forcing him to confront his rival and grow stronger in both power and ideology, ensuring that the cycle of rivalry, it propels his story forward as we move closer towards that inevitable conclusion that we get. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and also checking out this Naruto Explained video on the left, or checking out this video from my Anime Explained channel, where I talk about non-Naruto content in the form of video essays, lore videos, and explained videos, and so much more.